My name's Justin,
And I'm Bree.
and this is the Better Together podcast. I'm really glad that you're here with me today for this episode.
We were a little uncertain.
I was convinced yesterday that you were not going to be here for this episode.
Yeah, yesterday was rough.
Because you were sick.
Yeah.
And so, like, I was like, she's not, because yesterday was weird for you in general.
Yeah.
Because you're never that level of sick, really. And it was like you fell asleep before I got home from work.
Mm-hmm.
And then I sent you to bed. When I got home, you went back to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
You slept until I went to church.
Yep.
And then you slept while I was at church.
Yep.
And then you went back to sleep when I got home and it was time to go to bed.
Yep.
You don't do that.
I don't. Like
you were sick. So I was convinced. I was like, she's not going to be in the podcast. I'm going to have to think about how to be better together apart, which I don't know how I even do that. But I was like, I've got to come up with a plan for how to do this. I even had thought about, like, our son.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, well, maybe he can make his guest appearance on the podcast and let him say something because he's already practicing with, like, every device he can get his hands on.
He does podcasts all by himself.
Oh, yeah.
Constantly on our devices. And it's adorable.
This is the show. God bless. And it's just
That's all it is.
All these little tiny videos.
Mm-hmm.
It was like his name, then our name, and then he's like, God bless.
Yep. Sometimes he says some gibberish in between, like, hi, this is me and the mommy show, and God bless.
Or it's been good things and other stuff. Like, he'll say real words, but it doesn't make any sense. Like, he's just talking. I don't understand it. Yeah, but I thought, like, maybe I'll have him on here, and he can just say some random stuff and be cute. You know, that'll up the cute factor.
Yeah.
But I didn't have to do that because you're here.
Yes.
You actually made it to the podcast.
Praise God, I am feeling much better today. Still not quite 100%, but 100% better than yesterday.
But you never had a fever?
Yeah.
It's weird.
It was so weird.
Very bizarre.
Mm-hmm. I think part of it was stress-induced because renovations are stressful. And it's not even a renovation. It's just fixing stuff.
Yeah, it's not been a fun time. But we're not here to talk about
No, we're here to talk about fun stuff.
Well, not really fun stuff. I'm going to do different because my original plan was to talk about you and just, you know, how much of a blessing you are and supporting me and our family and all those things. And so I was like, I'm going to talk about that. But now you're here, so I don't have to really talk about that. I'm just kidding. But, like, that's what my plan was. It's like, you know, because when you're sick, it kind of changes things. Like when one half of the team is down, you know, it makes it hard. We're supposed to become one flesh. So when the other half of the flesh is down, you're like, oh, I got to do all this stuff? I'm not used to this. You know, I'll get into that in just a second. But so it's going to be a different episode than normal.
Okay.
Because we're going to have a serious topic.
Okay.
And really, we're going to talk about supporting your spouse. Because I feel like that's like really where that comes into. But going back to the whole, you know, two made one thing like that, our world today is really big on this whole, like, independence. Yeah. I'm independent. And I don't really like that. And I even see, like, no offense, but, like, women stand on that a whole lot more. Like, I don't think men talk about being dependent or codependent, but, like, a lot of women, especially nowadays, are like, I don't want to be codependent. I want to be an independent person, and I don't want to have to rely on somebody else. And it's like, I don't really think that's what the Bible says.
Yeah.
If God created man and woman, and we're supposed to leave our parents and be joined together, then we need to be able to rely on each other. And that dependence is one more cornerstone in not wanting to get a divorce. Yeah. Right? Like,
well, in the Bible, it specifically talks about Eve was created to be a helpmate for Adam.
Well, it was not good for man to be alone. Yeah. There you go. That's why we don't talk about it. We are codependent. I'll 100% say that I'm codependent, and I've been proud about it. There's a reason that we were created to be in relationship together. I need you. You need me. Yeah. And I'm codependent. I need you in order to function to my best. Yeah. In my ability. I need God more, obviously. And if God takes you for any reason, let's pray that doesn't happen. Yeah. But I'm just saying, if God takes one of us, he will give us the strength to be able to make it on our own, but the time we spent together is what's also enabled us to do that. Yeah, in my opinion. So I don't like the idea of independence, especially in the Christian faith in general. Yeah, we're not created to be independent. We're created to serve with one another, and we're supposed to be a part of a body. We're supposed to do corporate worship. We're not supposed to just live this online lifestyle.
Yeah.
We're supposed to have fellowship with one another.
Mhm.
And so dependency on God, on other believers, and on our spouse is a big part of the Christian life.
I 100% agree. The Bible talks about it over and over again about depending on each other and helping other people and being together. So, yeah.
Yeah, what's funny is I have all these notes. I didn't plan on going down that road,
Mhm.
but it's the truth. Like, I feel dependent upon you, and I
Mhm.
imagine you feel the same
I
way
do. Mhm.
for various different reasons.
Yeah.
And it just makes life so much easier. I mean, the Bible talks about that too, where like two people are better than one.
Yeah.
The Bible literally says that. And it's talking about like you can keep warm, you can
Mhm.
just do that, but just in general, life's easier when you're going at it with somebody else.
Yeah.
And we don't practice no religion, as far as
Mhm.
I'm aware, no Christian group practices the way that they did in Acts, where like you had Paul.
Mhm.
Paul never had a wife,
Mhm.
but Paul had a full support system,
Yeah.
right? He didn't get married, but he was so connected with the church and with the other people of faith that he had still the connection that he needed
Yeah.
to go forward. But we don't really live like that in modern society. It's like
Mhm.
every little small group, and then you come together every once in a while.
Yeah.
We need to come together more as the
Mhm.
last day approaches. That's Hebrews for
Yeah.
you guys. But, I think that dependency is something we don't think about spot. And that's part of supporting your spouse
Mhm.
is being codependent, but also like if you can't be codependent on somebody
Yeah.
and them not get anything from you. There
Yeah.
has to be a beneficial relationship on both sides.
Mhm.
What is that? Symbiotic
Yeah,
relationship?
pretty sure. That sounds right.
Trying to pull back that middle school biology class.
Literally, when you went to go say that, I had a flashback to my middle school science classroom. Like, I envisioned the classroom.
Symbiotic, parasitic, and ambiotic, maybe?
Yeah, that sounds right.
All I remember is like, so the one that always pops in my head is the one, and so like that's what some people want the relationship to be like. Is not symbiotic and hopefully not parasitic, but that like ambiotic, where they benefit from that person, but that person doesn't really get anything from them. So it wouldn't matter if they're there or not. And the one that pops in my head is there's these little fish that'll swim around sharks.
Yeah.
And the sharks will, get some kind of prey and eat it.
Mhm.
And then when they throw off, those little fish come and like eat.
Yeah.
But they're not even, it's not like there's birds and things that clean off like elephants and stuff. And so
Mhm.
that's good for the elephant, it's good for the bird.
Yeah.
But for that shark, that fish does nothing for it.
Yeah.
But that shark definitely serves the fish.
Mhm.
We need to support one another. I shouldn't be only serving you,
Mhm.
and you shouldn't only be serving me. It should be symbiotic. We
Yes.
should both get something out of this relationship, and we shouldn't be looking for that.
Yeah.
We should both really be looking for what can we give to this relationship.
And I feel like overall, we do a pretty decent job of that.
Yeah, I think that we do well. I think that it feels weird because obviously, like, I go to work every day. And you stay home with our son, which is great. But like because like I'm at work supporting us one way, but you're supporting us in a whole bunch of other ways. And so to me, and I think you might even think this way, like I think you do what seems like or feels like sometimes a lot more of the supporting load. Because
Yes,
like
but
you're
without
doing a bunch of little things.
Yeah.
Not little in value, but like smaller tasks.
Mhm.
Because I go do the same thing every
Yeah.
day for the same purpose. But like on one day you may do this, and on another day you may do something else. But all those little things add up and make it feel like you're doing
A big
more.
thing, yeah.
You know?
But I wouldn't be able to do what I do without you doing what you do.
Yeah, but we have to recognize that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you start to have issues.
Mhm.
And we've not always been good about recognizing
Yeah.
that. And like, I want to be very clear. We've not. It depends on how you measure time. How would you define time? I'm making a joke about something that I don't even really want to get into, so I'm not even going to go into that. It just depends on how you define the word. Somebody may understand the reference that I'm coming at in that, but I don't want to get into it. But you have to think about like just how you divide up time and things like that. But one thing, like since we've started all the different ministry stuff, and it's only going to grow from here.
Yeah.
Like you've supported me a lot in the fact that like I'm like, all right, well I've got to go work. I've got to figure out this podcast thing, or I've got to edit this, or I've got to record. And I mean, you guys don't see it. You're seeing 3 somewhere around an hour episodes a week, right? Editing currently no video, super easy.
Yeah.
Like I go on the computer, I'm probably exporting in less than 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes. I don't know. I don't really time it.
Yeah.
That part, pretty easy. Same thing every time. I've got a system worked out. That part is easy. Uploading, same thing. 5 minutes. I'm pretty well done. But you got to think there's this one we do together, but then the other 2 we don't want to be up all every night this late. Thankfully, it is my Christmas vacation, so that changes everything about how time works. I am now done for the rest of the year, so that's a great blessing. But anyways, so the other podcast, the other 2 hours a week, I have to do during the day.
Yep.
Somewhere and fit that in, but that's not counting all the preparation time.
All the study.
Especially for the More God Less Me podcast, that's more of a teaching thing, so that's a lot of study. But you're great about, like, if I say, hey, I need to go do this, you'll go and say, like, all right, to our son, let's go do this, let's go do that, let's let dad do his thing. And I really appreciate that. Very grateful for that blessing. But no, it's not easy.
Yeah, it's not. But I'm also very conscious, or I don't know the right words to say, but I am very proud of all the work that you put into this. And I appreciate just how much work it is.
Yeah.
So I try my best to allow you that time so it makes it easier on you.
Well, I think it's the ministry card that really gets the win on this one, because of all the other things that I've done in the past, like the support was there, but it was more begrudgingly done. Where you're like, fine, I'll go do it, but I'm not happy about
this
it.
This is for the Lord.
But now you're like, okay, and you're all at least seemingly happy and fine about it, which is appreciated.
It's for the Lord.
Yeah.
How can I not be happy to support that?
Yeah. No, I think you do a great job of supporting both of us all the time, and I'm very appreciative of everything like that. But then, like, when you were sick, I start to recognize, like, more that you do, especially, like, yesterday's a church day, so then I'm getting myself ready. I've got to get him ready. I've got to feed us. And then, of course, he's making a big mess because you can't eat at 4 years old without just getting things everywhere. Like, that's just a part of it.
Yep.
And then somehow you're like, how are you dirty? But it's always.
Yep.
And so then that whole thing, and dogs, and I got to remember to get a drink, and all these different things. And so it's just like you see where, like, oh, this is how much this person does. And so, like, it's not fun or enjoyable to be sick or to have to be the one to do those things. But I do think that it's important because we overlook so much about what the other person does.
Yeah.
Really, like, you think about it, we always talk about walking in someone else's shoes to better understand them, because perspective changes everything. Like, your perspective of life is different than my perspective because we're standing in different places.
Yeah.
Changes the way we look at everything. But we often don't actually do it. I think that's kind of a problem.
Yeah, you just think about doing it.
Yeah, you make that like, oh, well, and you even say that like, well, if I was in their shoes, it would be different. But you don't take the time to, like, put yourself in their shoes and at least try to see a different side of things. You're just like, oh, well, I can't really do it, so I'm not going to try.
Yeah. That's what it falls down to a lot of times. People don't actually put in any effort to truly see things from other people's perspectives.
Yeah.
So.
And then sometimes life and potentially God force your hand. And they're like, no, you're going to see what they do.
Yeah.
So that way you're appreciative of the support that you get on a regular basis. Because a lot of times we can't see the support that we're given until it's gone.
Yeah.
Right? Like anything. Like the weather outside, right? You're like, man, it's hot. I don't like this being hot thing. And then as soon as it gets cold, you're like, I wish it was warm outside. It is freezing. I'm tired of having to get the defrost and get the ice off the windshield.
And start the car 15 minutes early.
And then immediately it gets hot and you're like, oh, I wish it was cold. Yeah. It's everything. But you just don't know what you have until you've lost it. And so that one day, and even a little bit before that, but like that one day, especially of you being out of commission, it's like, man, she does a lot to support me, and I'm thankful for it, Well,
I'm glad that you see all that I do.
Yeah.
And that you're appreciative of it.
And so then I went to look at Bible verses, to look at both sides of the equation.
Yeah.
And, like, I'll be honest, you don't really find verses that remind that remind women of how blessed they are to have their husbands. Because I think that women are a little bit more connected that way. Like, you guys get it. You think about stuff like that. But men, we're just distracted by everything else. So we don't really think about like how much of a blessing it is. But Solomon, had hundreds of wives.
Yeah.
But he is like, that's what he talked about a lot in Proverbs. It's like Proverbs 18:22. He who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord. So just having a wife is a good thing and shows that you have favor from God to be blessed to have a wife. Proverbs 19:14. House and wealth are inherited from fathers, but a prudent wife is from the Lord. So, men, if you have a good wife, a prudent wife, a wife who is active and loves you and cares for you and is purposeful in their actions, that's from God. That's a gift from God to be thankful for. And how often do we thank God just for that? For the fact that we have a great wife or a great spouse that supports us and that cares for us. I don't think it's very common. And then Proverbs 31, the picture that's supposed to paint a perfect woman, right? Says, an excellent wife who can find, she is far more precious than jewels. So like a lot of times we'll value things like jewels or precious things like that, but we should really be valuing our wife. And especially if she is an excellent wife, a wife who does things like you do, I should be looking at you as a fine jewel. It's like a great blessing like that to have. I think that as husbands, we're blessed to have wives that are good wives, and that means living according to what the Bible calls them to do. And I mean, among all things, especially as apostolics, we believe in modesty, we believe in this, and so you've got like all the faith aspects. But then, the Bible talks a lot about wives submitting to their husbands and how important that is. And so that is something to realize. Like if we have a wife that is acting biblically and is submitting to her husband, is living under his lead, that doesn't mean, you can't ever tell your husband no or anything like that, but you allow your husband to lead things in life. But part of the reason that you're there as a wife is to give good counsel.
Yeah.
That's part of being a helpmate. It's like, I remember one time we used to listen to the Wally Show a lot, and he would talk about like how he would be building something, and his wife doesn't really like do much of that, but he would be like struggling and can't figure out how to get this, and his wife would be like, well, what if you just did this? And he's like, oh, that would never work. Just let me think about it. Just let me think about it. She walks by and he's like, that's exactly what I need to do. But we struggle as men to admit that good counsel. So it's like it's a double-edged sword. Your wife is supposed to submit to your authority as the husband and as the head of the household, but that doesn't mean that you just don't do everything it says. And to think about it like that, you've got, Ephesians chapter 5 talks about women submitting to their husbands, and so does Colossians 3:18. But 1 Peter chapter 3:7 says, likewise, husbands, live your wives in an understanding way, showing honor to the woman as the weaker vessel, since they are heirs with you of the grace of life, so that your prayers may not be hindered. That's a verse that I don't really hear often in the church.
Yeah.
But I've always thought it's very interesting. And really, this time looking at it, I didn't even think about it. It says, live with your wives in an understanding way. We don't do well at that. It's hard to understand each other.
Yeah.
But that verse is calling you specifically to make an effort, to try to live in an understanding way towards your wife, because it's important and it matters.
I will say that's where communication comes in.
Yes, and I have that in here because I have our golden rule of marriage that we've had since the beginning, and I do want to get into that. But also, why should you live with your wives in an understanding way, and why should you show them honor? Because if you don't, your prayers are going to be hindered.
Yeah.
Too many guys sitting around thinking like, I just don't know why it doesn't seem like my prayers are being answered. Well, how are you treating your wife? And Colossians 3:19 says, husbands, love your wives and do not be harsh with them. That's a hard thing to do sometimes too, because you get upset, you get angry, and you say things you don't mean. I'm guilty. I have done it. I have said things in anger and being upset, and those are things that I've had to repent for, both to God and to you, because it's not right. The Bible says that it's not right, but it's very easy to fall into those things. But I like looking at these things because it calls men and women both to live a certain way, and we're all called to live one specific way. But these are direct calls to
husbands and wives
specifically. And like I didn't mention this one for wives, but 1 Timothy chapter 3 verse 11 says, their wives likewise. This is talking about people who want to be deacons and things, but I think it really applies. Like this is even if you're not looking for the office of a deacon or an elder, you should look at those verses and still strive to live your life like that. We shouldn't
Yeah.
strive to live less than just because there's not a certain position that
Yeah.
we hope to achieve. We should strive to live the best lives we can. And so this says their wives likewise must be dignified, not slanderers, not slanderers, but sober-minded, faithful in all things.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we have a wife that's living that way, that's when those things from Proverbs come in. You have a good wife, and that's something to be thankful for and glad. And if you're living in a situation right now where you don't have a good wife,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't mean you don't support them.
Yeah.
If your wife's not living for God or your husband's not living for
Mm-hmm.
God, that doesn't mean you don't support them.
Yeah.
I don't have those verses in my notes,
Yeah, I
but
was
the
gonna
Bible
say.
talks about it. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that the Bible specifically addresses that. If your spouse isn't living for God, they may come to know God because of your good behavior, because of the light that's shining through you.
Yeah, your life and the way, and and let's be honest, in most cases where you have a spouse who is saved and one spouse is saved and one spouse isn't, that's not the way they came together.
Yeah.
One had a conversion during their marriage,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how it really has that big effect because they know who you were and now they see who you are.
Yep.
And seeing the change that God made in you is very evident to them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's going to have the power. It's the visible testimony, because other people, you have to share your testimony and tell them where you came from and what you used to be like and how God changed you. But a person like your spouse, you don't have to tell them that.
Yeah.
And
They
so
can just see it.
they see it because they've lived it with you.
Yep.
And I think that's a very important thing to think about. And so, but that goes back to support as well.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a Christian and your spouse isn't, you need to be supporting them and showing them love and kindness, even if they're not doing the same to you.
Yeah.
Because that is going to, for one, it's going to heap burning coals upon their head.
Yep.
That doesn't mean taking abuse, like
Yeah.
physical or any kind of abuse that tears you down.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a difference, but there's a fine line between abuse and just a person who's just not happy and doesn't have God in their life and needs God to help them change. And so you can just write things off, let things roll off your back. It's not easy.
Yeah.
But it is what the Bible calls us to do.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're in a real abuse situation, that is different, and I want to be very clear.
Yes.
To find the help you need, talk to somebody who can look into your situation personally. Don't look for a podcast when you're in that situation. Find a minister, find a Christian counselor, find somebody, an organization, faith-based. Everything we do as Christians, faith-based.
Mm-hmm.
But find something faith-based in person that you can talk to and that can help you through that situation, because that's serious.
Yes.
But if it's not true abuse and it's just you guys don't get along the best, don't let the flesh lead, let the Spirit lead.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you need to do. Now, transitioning back, in Ephesians chapter 5, 25, chapter 5, verse 25, the Bible says, "Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her." Now, I read that verse and it's like, yeah, that's what we should do. And I think that's what a lot of people think. I think most husbands know that they need to love their wives as Christ loved the church, and that they do love their wife like that. I don't think that's the problem. I think this problem is that most husbands struggle to show their wives that love in a way that their wife can actually connect with. Because we think about it in two different ways.
Well, there's a reason that book came out. The love languages, 5 or 7 love languages?
I don't remember.
Yeah. However many love languages. But there's a reason that came out. Is because people, they feel loved through certain
there's certain ways that you feel love.
Yeah.
And it's not the same for every person. And with that, our default answer is
always however we accept love.
We want to, anything. If I like something, that's what I think I should give to you. Because I assume that everybody likes what I like.
Yeah.
So if I like a show, I'm going to tell you to watch that show because you should like it because I like it.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's just how we think.
Makes sense.
Or food-wise. But we all have different tastes. We all have different things that we like. And love and support are no different. I want to make that connection of love and support.
Yes.
Because supporting is loving and loving is supporting. They go hand in hand together. And I have that in my notes. Like literally where you went with this is where I was going. Is that
and I didn't look at his notes.
Yeah, I didn't prepare you. I actually meant to say that in the beginning of this,
Yeah.
but I knew you'd be ready. That's also what I have in my note. So I have it written down that I didn't tell you anything about this, but I knew you would be able to run with it because you're just that spiritual.
Oh.
Uh, no, but we don't just need to give what we want, but we need to give the other person what they want. That's crucial.
Not only what they want, but also look for what they need.
Yeah, which I was equating to
Yeah.
the same thing, but that makes sense. Because I've heard it said, I think we've all had, that men need respect and women need love.
Yeah.
And what's interesting to me is I think that actually is the same thing on both sides, but we just experience it different and
Yeah.
define it different. So I find that statement to be true. I did read an article on the contrary, and this person was upset and I believe had their own level of issues, mainly because they were taking it as like women don't need to be respected.
Oh.
But I don't think that's what all that
No.
statement means. It just means that we interpret and receive love differently.
Yeah.
And so, just from my opinion, most men feel loved through respect, through obedience. It's like not obedience, but like through submission. Like, if I say, I think this is the direction we should go for our family, and you say yes, I feel like that's you showing me love, agreeing and saying like, I think you're right. You're leading our family, and we're gonna do what you say we should do in that situation. Oh wow, she really does respect and love me and care about what I have to say. That's what men are more worried about, in my opinion. I would say most men. You can't paint everybody in a box. Everybody's gonna be different. But in a lot of ways, as men, we want respect. That's what we crave, and we equate respect with love. But for women, you don't really look at it that way, I don't think.
Yeah.
And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems to me like affection means more to you than respect.
Well, in giving
in a
said
way.
affection, you are showing respect for me.
Yes.
So it's just different for women because a lot of times our love languages are acts of service type situation and gifts. And that's because it's nice to be on the receiving end. A lot of times our lives are spent on the giving end. We want to submit. We want to support. So we're constantly giving of ourselves to support others, whether it's our husbands, our families, if we're not married, our household that we're in, or our churches, whatever. We're there to support however we need. And so that means giving, 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 giving. So when someone gives to us, that's a true blessing. And that's how we feel love. We're like, oh my gosh, they love me. They brought me a special drink, or, oh, they did the dishes for me, whatever.
Yeah.
That's saying, oh, they respect all that I do for them.
Well, I'm not saying I think that the conventional definition of respect applies to men more, and the conventional definition of love applies to women more. So the idea of love, affection, adoration is going to be what a woman craves more than, I really respect your opinion.
Yeah.
That's not a sign of love to you. If I told you that, you don't equate that with love. But a guy, you say that, and you're like, wow, she really cares about me. She respects what I have to say. You could almost say, I respect you to a lot of men, and we would take that as I love you.
Oh my gosh, they love me?
Yeah, that's how the translation works. And I think that's what that person didn't understand. It's not that respect can means to respect, to care for, to put somebody in it's hard to describe the word respect, but there is the meaning of respect that just means I don't look down upon you. I think highly of you and things like that. But as men, we just equate respect as love. But women don't really they need to be respected.
Yes.
Obviously. And the Bible says that.
Yes.
Right? But at the same time, they don't look at it as love. So it's two different things. To say oh, I just I love you so much, blah, 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 doesn't have the same impact going both directions.
The cashier can respect me, but not ogling me.
Yeah.
When I'm at the store, but you love me. So.
Yeah. And what's interesting though is Ephesians chapter 5 verse 33 backs this whole idea up that men desire respect and women desire love in those general senses. Because it says, however, let each of you love his wife as himself. And if you do love your wife as yourself, you're going to respect your wife.
Exactly.
But you need to show it not as general respect, like you would respect, somebody else. You need to show more than that. They need to see the love more than they need to see the respect. But it says, and let the wife see that she respects her husband. Because when you show that, if I show you love, you're going to know you're respected.
Exactly.
But if you show me respect, I'm going to know that I'm loved. And it sounds so weird and so strange to say it like that, but that's legitimately what it means.
Yeah.
That is what that says. It doesn't mean that you don't love me, you just respect me. And it doesn't mean that I don't respect you, I just love you.
It means that I love you so much that I respect you, and you love me so much that you respect me.
Yeah. Exactly. It's just, but they work together. And so when everybody's trying to give each other what they desire because that's all they know, no one's ever going to be satisfied.
Exactly.
Though. Like if I tell you like I really respect you, you're like that's great, but do you love me?
Yeah.
And if all you ever say is like, "Oh, I love you," we've had that conversation before. Of like, I don't feel like this is respected or that's respected because I want to know, if we're talking about even something that God gave me or like something I've been working on in the faith, I want to know like what your thoughts are and know that you think that's a good thing more than like if you could tell me I love you that day, it's like, well, that's great. But what do you think about the stuff that I'm doing?
Yeah.
Like that's where I live differently. And so if we're going to support each other, we have to recognize things like that. And it goes deeper than that.
Yeah.
Like like you were talking about the love languages, like at sometimes if I go do the dishes, like if I unload the dishwasher, that's a big thing for you.
Yeah.
But like as bad as it is, like there's an expectation from me just for you to normally do that, right? And so like I don't view it that way, but there's things you can do for me as support that are going to make a big difference. We need to know what the other person needs and wants. And that's where we're talking about our rule comes in. Because we've had this rule from the beginning that if we don't voice our expectation, we can't be upset.
Yep.
And that's not easy.
No, it's not.
Because you don't realize how often you don't voice your expectations.
Yeah.
You just expect things to be done a certain way. You never say anything about it. And then when it doesn't get done, you're upset about it. And you voice that opinion. And then you upset the other person because they had no idea that you wanted them to do that. And as men, we're quick to put that on women. Oh, women just expect us to be mind readers. That's always the big joke and things like that. But, like, come on, guys. We're just as bad about it. Like, oh, well, I wanted this for dinner. Well, you didn't tell me.
Yeah.
How am I supposed to know that you wanted that for dinner?
You said just make whatever. Do cheat meals. Okay. Well, here you go.
Yeah. So but that's what it is. But we can be honest. I think personally, whenever I haven't said something and things don't go according to my expectation, but I didn't voice it, I do better about not being as upset as you do.
You do better about not being upset in general about all things.
Yes.
You are very good to quickly forgive, as the Bible talks about doing. Like, it is in your personality, baked in deep to forgive and forget very fast.
Thankfully. I enjoy it.
Yeah, it is very wonderful to have that in a spouse. But as someone who grew up a lot differently and I have to work through some things, sometimes I take a bit longer.
Yeah. But no, that's not my point. My point was more of like, you've made a point in the past to be like, I'm upset, but I can't really be upset because I didn't tell you to do this or I didn't ask you to do that. But I want you to know that I'm not happy about it.
Yeah.
And mine is like, because apparently I only get bothered by food.
Yeah.
But it'll be like, I'll tell you later, saying, I didn't really want that. But I'll eat it first.
Yeah.
So that way you can't be upset at me. I'll be like, I really don't like that. I wish we hadn't had spaghetti.
And I'm so upset that you don't like spaghetti.
It's just, I don't know. I'm not Italian.
You don't like any pasta besides ramen.
And is that even pasta at that point?
And it hurts me. But we eat lots of Mexican instead.
Mexican is, I think that's what's going to be served in heaven. Is Mexican.
And I think it's going to be Italian.
I don't even understand it because, like, you talk about liking Italian food, but I don't think you're, like, super invested in the whole Italian food thing. It just sounds good to you.
No, take me to Olive Garden.
Yeah, and I'll get soup, salad, and breadsticks. I'm not even eating Italian food. That's what I'm saying that's what you're going to get.
Well, I get that because I'm cheap, and I want the most food for the least amount of money.
But what would you get if you could just get anything?
I really enjoy a chicken parm.
What was the one that you used to get? Was the piccata?
Oh, yeah, the chicken piccata.
The little, like, half pea things on it? Does that came on that one?
And it came with Parmesan crusted zucchini.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
I wonder, I've never, like, I don't know anything.
And then chicken costoletta from the Cheesecake Factory.
Yeah. I know that pizza, the way that we eat it here in the great United States of America, that find other people's things and make them better, that's what we do as a country.
Yeah.
You know, like tacos.
Yeah.
Like, you go to a real Mexican restaurant, and it's like, this is okay. But you know what would make tacos better? Seasoning. And so that's what we've done in America. You go even to Taco Bell, and they have seasoned beef. You go to a Mexican restaurant, and they just have beef.
Yep.
And it's kind of watery. Anyway. But that's what we do. And so I wonder, though, like, if you look at Olive Garden, and you take, like, an Italian person to Olive Garden, they're like, what is this stuff? You know, the tour of Italy. We don't eat any of these things in Italy. You know? I don't know. I just...
Yeah.
You know?
But I like...
They don't even have cannolis. Isn't that Italian?
I think so.
I don't know anything. I don't know anything about Italian people, except they're all mobsters. I'm just kidding. That went off the rails. But supporting your spouse,
yes,
is so important, and it has to be something that you make an effort to do. We're not, and I don't mean, like, obviously, just without trying, we're going to support each other.
Yeah,
because of the various roles, especially in our situation. Now, there's couples that both work, and that becomes much difficult to support one another because you're both supporting the family, and then you have to play different roles when you get home. You got to really divide and conquer. But the way that our life is, we kind of fall into supporting. I support us, you know, financially and spiritually a lot. And then you support us a lot with just like homemaking and also spiritually, obviously. You know, that's a give and take situation where one falls short, the other picks up, which is what it means to support somebody, right?
Exactly.
Basically, the way that we should look at our marriages is like we're in a 3-legged race. And we're going to have to both make an effort to slow down, take note of what the other's doing, and lock in step with them in order to get to the finish line the most effective and quickest way. Now, we're all going to mess up, you know. Like, I would love that. God, if we get to heaven and God could show us like the 3-legged race of our life together and just how many times we were like not in step and you like fell down and things like that because we didn't take the time. The people who win a 3-legged race aren't the fastest ones off the line.
Yeah.
They're the ones that look down and start making an effort, and then they speed up and get better as they march on towards the finish line. And that's what we're going to have to do as spouses. We're going to have to be purposeful. We're going to have to look at our spouse and say, what do they need? What do they appreciate? And what can I just simply do to help them? What can I do to take burden off of them?
Yeah.
You know, like we need to be purposeful as a married couple and doing the best that we can for one another.
I totally agree. In order to really make any team work well, you have to work together. If, like the Bible talks about, if a house divided, if a house is divided, it's going to fall.
Yeah.
So you have to look at what the other person needs, wants, and like you said, just something else in general to support them in order to really flourish.
Yeah. And I think there's multiple ways to do this. Like, for one, I think you should make an effort, either side of being a spouse, whether you're a husband or a wife, you need to look and say, what can I do as a surprise?
Mm-hmm.
Like if I said one day, oh, look, the dishwasher's done. I'm going to go unload it without her knowing. And then
Mm-hmm.
when she goes to see it, she's going to be like, that's empty. That's so great.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Now, that's a twofold thing. If that happens to you and they do something for you and you take note of it,
you need to tell them.
You need to tell them, hey, thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
Because that makes them want to do it again.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't acknowledge it, and I know that sounds petty, we're not children and blah, blah, blah. I get it. But you need to acknowledge when somebody does something good because that makes them want to do it again. It's like training your dog. There's a reason you give them a treat when they do what's good is because they'll continue to do what's good.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just as simple as that in a lot of our ways. If I unload the dishwasher and you say, hey, I noticed that you unloaded the dishwasher. I really appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
That really helped me out today, and I thank you so much for doing it. Well, there's a good chance that's like, I like that praise. I'm going to do that again.
Yep.
And so you need to look for that secret thing, but also sometimes you need to have the talks.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we don't talk enough in this country.
Yeah.
And we've talked about that too. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we try, I mean, we talk for an hour a week at least on this podcast. We talk a lot.
Yes.
But sometimes it's a lot of surface level stuff.
Yep.
And we need to get down to the nitty gritty.
Mm-hmm.
And sadly, a lot of those conversations are when it's like, you're kind of upset about whatever.
Yeah.
Or it's late at night when you finally get to that point. It's like being at my parents' house.
Yeah.
And none of the serious faith conversations come up until it's time to leave. And it's like, why did we have to break the ice for 3 hours in order to get to what really mattered? But we need to have constructive conversations as spouses about how can I support you? What can I do to support you? And vice versa.
Yep.
And if you're listening to this and your spouse comes to you and wants to have that conversation, then you need to tell them ask them how you can support them as well. Do unto others as you'd have them do to you. If you want something from them, you need to offer something to them as well.
Exactly. It can't just be one-sided.
No.
Again, because any team...
Exactly. It's got to be the symbiotic relationship. Don't be the little fish just following the shark around, not actually doing anything for the shark. It's not all about you. You're a team. You're in a 3-legged race called life. I can't wait to preach that sermon now. I hope that memory stays with me forever because it's so funny to think about.
Mm-hmm.
We'd probably just go in circles in a 3-legged race with our height difference. We're talking about over a foot difference. We'd be just like going in a circle. There's one side lower than the other.
The funniest illustration to go through and do with like a premarital counseling group.
Yeah. No, I'm thinking this is main stage, babe. Like I'm calling you up there.
Oh,
we're going to have to prepare. You have to wear the right shoes that day. Like we can't be wearing any crazy shoes for tying our legs together.
You're going to be dragging me behind you.
Yeah. But it's just like, I think it makes the valid point. I never thought about it that way, but it literally, if we're becoming one flesh, we are connected and we have to work together.
Exactly.
And we can't, if we're fighting against each other, neither of us are going to win.
Exactly.
We have to support one another.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope I'm not being too repetitive because I have a tendency to really want to drive a point home.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why when I prepare a message, I write it out.
Yep.
And read through it 17 times to make sure.
And then if he's feeling like it still might be on the edge of things, that's where I come in.
Yeah. With what I believe and really what we believe as apostolic people, we don't look at it as like, this is what I want to preach on. There's a lot of churches who aren't spirit-led.
Yeah.
Who think like, I'm going to preach on this subject. And I'm like, I don't really want to do that. I would like to get whatever I'm going to preach about from God. And so I read the Bible, I pray, and just like you feel led to a subject. It's not like God audibly speaks to you in that moment, which would be great, but gives you a lead and you feel like this is what you talk about. And so I write a lot of the messages and I do the More God, Less Me podcast, if you've listened to that, in a format that is more like a sermon. Yeah. But recently I got something that felt more like a sermon than anything ever. Like it was just like, this is a sermon, not a podcast thing. Now, I felt led to redo some of it, like write basically a podcast version of the same thing, but I got a very heavy feeling of like, this is going to be a sermon. And I finished that recently, and I had that moment of like, I'd really like to show it to you. This is what I said all that to get to this. It's like, I'd really like to show this to you. But also, when I preach it for the first time, I would rather you be like, wow, this is good. Instead of it being like, well, I've heard this before.
Oh, the perils of being called to preach.
Yeah. It's like, I really want to share this with you, and I have shared, I think I shared one part of it with you. It was like, I really want to share this with you. However, I also want to take you off guard whenever I'm up there. So we'll see what happens. I don't know yet.
Well, we'll see what the Lord lays on your heart.
Yeah. But I think that's all that I've got on supporting the spouse, because I feel like I'm going to repeat myself. I went through all my notes, gave you some Bible verses. We tried to make this podcast a little bit different. I think that makes, I want to talk about the fun stuff. I want to have the fun episodes, but I want to have the serious episodes too. I want to be able to talk about real things that really matter. So,
well, I hate that being sick let us done.
You hate that we had to be sick.
Yes.
How about that? You had to be sick to get here, but you're glad we're here.
Yes, that's what I was trying to say.
Because I do think if you are able to listen to this whole podcast, if you've made it this far, that it can be a blessing to you.
Exactly. Because a lot of times, and I'll speak for wives, you may not all feel this way, but you may. But as wives, we see a lot of what we do to support our spouses as going unrecognized, because this is stuff that just has to be done for the house to function. Like it just has to.
And it's something that we struggle as the other half, and that goes both ways.
Yeah.
But you struggle for the things that are expected, and the things that have to happen are the things you don't normally give thanks for.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to feel valued in those things. And so on both sides, no matter what your role is or what the other person's role is, realize that they're doing important things for your family.
Yeah.
And make sure to make a point to know that you're thankful and appreciative that they do that.
Yeah. Like you said, like you had to get our son ready for church and have drinks and all this stuff. Well, just recently, being a woman, we go through our moody spells and such and whatnot. I was a little like, oh my gosh, there's so much stuff that I have to do, and all he's doing to get ready for church is going and getting himself dressed and fixing hair and that. Like,
do you know how hard it is to look this good?
I was like, man, he has it so easy right now. And then you realize you have it really easy.
Well, I've had to deal with some of that before, and I do understand that it's a pain. The only like Sundays, I 100% could and should be a little bit better. I do take Wednesdays as the excuse of like, but you purpose your Wednesdays knowing that we have to go to church, and I don't get to do that at work, so I'm gonna just try to relax up until I have to get ready. Yeah. I'm not trying to make an excuse, but that's just where my mind goes.
And a lot of times, it's on Sundays where that feeling comes in, like, man, I've got so much stuff to do. Like, oh my goodness. And it can be overwhelming at times.
There are times where you're like, I'm going to do the dishes. Yeah. I'm like, okay, I get it that the dishes could, like, the dishwasher could be emptied. A few things could be put in there.
I get that there's like 3 minutes extra time.
But maybe we don't have to stress over that right before we need to walk out the door. Or maybe it's not the right time to do laundry right now.
But it's got to be done.
I'm not, hey,
I'm thinking about it right now.
Yeah. No, it's funny. Now, I think you got a good road. Did you finish your thought?
Yeah.
Okay. So support each other as husband and wife.
Mm-hmm.
Be a good teammate. Be a good partner. And just do your best.
Yeah.
But I want to briefly, because I don't think we've had an update on our whole, like, church planting, calling thing. I don't know if we... did we talk about the other stuff, like the other people?
I don't think we did.
Okay, so... we've had some great developments in that area. There's other people that are at our current church who also feel a call for the city that we actually live in.
Yes.
And they want to do some work. And so we're going to team up and try to do the work together, which is going to be interesting. Because just like in this case, you're going to have to make some work and some allowances in order to support other people and other people's way of thinking and things like that. So that's going to be interesting. But I do think that what this other family brings to the table, especially like I've talked to the wife a little bit. You've been too sick, and stuff. They're like, there's been so many issues with her son being sick, and with you being sick, that you've not been a part of many of these meetings.
Yeah.
But from talking to the husband, I'm not as like like I'm very sold out to God, but I'm also just not super like pushy. And I don't mean pushy in like sharing the faith, but in like making headway, like forcing your way into situations. And that's not a down thing on him, but it seems like he has more of that like we're gonna make this happen no matter what.
Gung ho.
Yes. And he's gonna go like, he's the Labrador.
Yeah.
Right? He's the Labrador person. He's gonna run in there, he's gonna find the venue, he's gonna figure it all out. That's what I need.
Yeah.
Honestly. And so that's gonna work out very well. And so part of the thing too though is like their schedule is a lot different than ours is. Our schedule is just very standard. We have the same schedule every day, every week pretty much. And so we don't have to worry about those sort of things. But there is a lot more fluctuation. I think he travels for work more frequently and things like that. And so our availability makes us a great candidate. We're going to be there for every Bible study, every teaching, God willing, obviously.
Yes, Lord willing, we will be there.
But we have a very set schedule that's going to make it very easy to do that.
Yes.
So that's great. And then we, because of the work going on at our house, we've met an individual that also lives in the city, shares similar faith to us, but needs the Bible study, needs the discipleship.
Yes.
And is looking for something in the local area.
Yep.
Because we live in a place that you don't have to drive far to go anywhere. And that's all of Tennessee.
It's so convenient.
But that's just Tennessee in general. Like people don't normally go more than 30 minutes to go to work, to go to the store, things like that, unless they live like far out into the boonies. But for most cities, people don't leave their little city. And it's not like, and we don't have traffic like other places do. And so we're not used to driving 30 plus minutes to go to church. We're not used to things like that. Now, in places like Atlanta or New York, you might expect to drive that just to go a couple miles down the road.
Yeah.
And so you're driving
30 minutes, you are driving several.
You're driving like 20 plus miles.
Yeah.
I mean, like, so people don't travel like that in our area.
Yeah.
And so convincing people, especially like us living here and me working in another city over. So like, if you think about it this way, our church is in one city, and then one city over, technically 2 cities over.
2 cities over.
Is where we live, and then still one more city over is where I work. And so trying to get people to come all the way 3 cities over to go to church is very difficult.
Yes.
And even 2 cities over is very difficult. Because people view all churches as the same.
Yep.
When, let's just be honest, they're not.
Yeah.
And so having something in our city is going to be able to have that pull. And so we've got potentially 3 people already like ready to go to the Bible study. We're going to start the real plans next month.
Woohoo. And that's just a couple weeks away. Can you believe it?
Yeah. I mean, we're almost to Christmas. We got 11 days as of the recording of this podcast. 10 days if you're listening to this now, and we normally post this at night, so you need to get on the ball because you really only have 9.
Yeah. Yeah. Go make sure you got all your presents.
Yes. Make sure. You can't see me. This isn't a video podcast currently. We're going to get there.
Listen, I got you a present. Calm down.
Okay. But also, like, huh?
Did you give me a present?
No. Me and the kid are going to go. But you made me lose track of my thoughts now.
11 days till Christmas.
You need to get him a present. I
got him a present way before you got him a present. And it's stashed away and needs to be wrapped.
I don't even remember that.
Huh.
Okay, well.
We digress.
I don't even know what we're on about. We need to support each other. You don't need to be so mean. No fighting. No, I'm just kidding. This is getting to be 9 o'clock, so it's past our bedtime.
Yes. We are old people at heart. We love to be in bed now.
Yeah.
Especially with me not being well.
But hopefully our church works out better than some of our friends who were going into counseling sessions at like 9:30 the other night. Ooh. It's like, Brother Henson, I'm going to need y'all to go do that one.
Yeah, yeah. We'll take daytime. You take nighttime.
Yeah, we got all the daytime meetings. Y'all, that's what we need the other half for.
Exactly.
So.
See, that symbiotic relationship coming into effect already.
Yeah. This is going to be so funny because like we need to have still like we've had pre-meetings, just like little conversations. Yeah. But so then like we go to like the real meeting between us to like hash out like what are we going to teach? Where are we going to teach it? What's this? What's that? Mm-hmm. We're going to go to that and be like, so we need to talk about symbiotic relationships. I've got
We're going to have them over for dinner. And
I think you should listen to episode 17 of the Better Together podcast. I think it would really help you to understand the situation that we're about to end up in right now.
That would be so funny.
Yeah.
if y'all listen to this by some weird chance,
I really do think still, because like we still got we got 6 minutes before we hit an hour, so I can digress a little bit more.
Okay.
If people want to listen to this is the kind of stuff that I enjoy.
Yeah.
So maybe other people do, but I still really feel like we need to get on to doing like a little bit of vlogging.
Yeah.
As difficult as, because we're about to enter a time of life that is like potentially the origin story of a work.
Yeah.
And this is something that like
how cool would that be?
Really, anybody, it's like if you vlogged some aspect of your life, just big moments, it would be cool to be able to look back on it, whether you post it online or not. Because even thinking about like as we've gotten married and like we've had the trips and things, we've talked about that. But like there's so many other things that we haven't documented well. Yeah. That it would be cool to look back on. But especially something like this that impacts our lives, but has the potential to impact countless other lives. Yeah. Because you have to think about the ripple effect. Right? Just like take Josh, the guy that we were just talking about. He's very on fire right now, as a lot of new believers are. But because of that, he's wanting to talk about God all the time to multiple different people. So if we can reach him with the fullness of truth, the ripple effect that he can have is massive. Yes. You know why? You know the best example of that in the Bible? I just read about this the other day. Oh, yeah? I never even thought about it. I believe it's Andrew finds Peter, right? And you don't read much about Andrew in the Bible. Yeah. Except for the fact that, yeah. So Andrew and Peter were brothers. I just wanted to make sure I was right. I didn't want to say it wrong. But yes, so it's Andrew and Peter. So Andrew was an apostle. Yeah. But he's not talked about much, except for in the very beginning when he goes and finds his brother Peter, at the time was Simon, to tell him, we have found the Messiah, and then he brings Peter and introduces him to Christ. So Andrew...
And look at all what Peter did.
Exactly. Andrew, not talked about a whole lot. Yep. But then the ripple effect, you have all that is done, because Andrew saw it important to go to Peter, and then Peter, I mean, he preached on the day of Pentecost. He did this, he did that. He's a major Bible character, and a big part of the reason he's where he was is because of Peter. Yep. And so we have the opportunity to have a great effect in our city, our county, and our country, even, in our world. You could see, there could be missionaries birthed out of the work that we're about to start in a city that's not really ever had a work. It's not like where you've gone and you're taking over a church, or I've even heard people talk about, I heard some people plant a church where, there had been a church, and then that church died. It was an apostolic church. That church died, and then they went and planted a new church in that city. So they're still carrying on a legacy. Yeah. From what I understand, we have no legacy. Yeah. And so we're about to start something, and it would be so cool to like have some kind of thing like that. And especially if we're blessed to be able to have the same experiences that some of our friends are having, where like right now, I mean tomorrow, they are basically being given a building. Yes. A whole church and a parsonage and all these things, and God's moving in miraculous ways. And they're obviously going to have those memories, but it's not going to be like a filmed thing. Yeah. They're not going to have like, and maybe they are. Yeah. So I did talk to him about that a while back, and maybe they'll do something, obviously pictures, Instagram post, something like that. But I think that's such a great medium. And also reach your city. Exactly.
But so many works that we see now that are very successful and all of that, like you try to reminisce on that with pictures, and you make it into a video and all that. That's nice, but how cool would it be to just have the full recording?
Yeah, like if you could imagine, just like our pastor, I think it's going to be 40 years next year, right?
Yep.
Is what they said.
Pretty sure.
And so he took the church over, and obviously 40 years ago was a very long time. The world was a different place. Video was a different place. Yeah. But could you imagine if you could roll back and see like him talking about like, it's my first day, I'm about to get ready to go up and preach, like, and then you have that clip, and then you cut to now and things like that. Like, that's just really cool. Yeah. And to be able to see the buildings, because as far as I know, and from what I've seen in different things that our church has put together, I've only ever seen a picture of the outside of one of the first buildings, and I think it wasn't even the very first building.
Yeah. I've seen a clip of the choir.
Yeah. It's like watching a 8-bit like video game for the NES, though. It's bad.
Yeah.
But they tried.
Yeah, they tried.
But then there are great videos of like when the new building was being built. And so they have all that for the future.
Yep.
And that's the kind of thing I want from the beginning.
Well, and what's great about all of our interests and things that we've cycled through is it's as if God prepared us for that, because we've been interested in
and the mic was like 3 feet from my face. But yes.
Because we've been interested in videography and vlogging and all of that aspect, and we've delved into it at different times in different seasons and different
there's different times in life. We've done all these different things. Different
what's the word?
I don't know what you're looking for at all.
Like, we've done it for adventures, we've done it for this and that, like
different topics.
Yes, different topics. So
all leading to this one thing.
It all seems like it's just God bringing it around.
I was a fisherman, and now I'm a fisher of men. Huh?
It's just funny. But yeah, it's just different things that when you look back on, you can see how God's planting things and preparing stuff for the future. And, as you're delving into it and looking back, like, wow.
I'm just glad that we both agreed that I need a new camera. That's really what I was trying to get you to, and I feel like we're here.
No, I don't. I don't think that's where we're at, because we have cameras,
but not a vlogging camera.
We've got gear.
Yeah, but
you told me that one thing was gonna be for vlogging.
I don't remember what thing.
That one little Osmo action camera. You said this is the best thing ever.
Yeah, years ago. It's not up to par anymore.
Too bad. So sad. You're gonna have to deal with it for now, and then you can upgrade later.
I just really need a new phone. I think if I had a new phone, it would be
I think we both really
need new phones. Yeah, if we can get through all these spending things, that's on the list.
Bones.
Yeah.
Anyways,
I think it's going to do it for this episode of the podcast. I don't want to go for a new record tonight. I think we need to cut it off here before you just keep rambling on as you do. I know you're definitely the one that leads these episodes.
Oh, yeah. You know me.
Yeah, if you look at the word count, you're definitely going to far pass me up. That's what I'm trying to get mine in here at the end. So I finally have a chance to speak. Goodness.
Anyways, y'all, please come back on Monday and check out the More God Less Me podcast. And then also check in on Wednesday for the God Notes podcast. And then check in again next Friday to see what we're up to.
Hopefully back in our house or
Lord
so
willing,
close.
Lord willing.
So close.
Oh.
Pray for us on that subject that we'll be back in our house early so we can clean all the dust they made.
Yes, because drywall means lots of dust everywhere.
All right, but that's going to do it for this week's episode. We hope you guys have a great weekend.
Yes.
We hope to see you again.
Let us know what you do. I want some weekend plans in the comments.
Yes. Until we talk to you again, God bless.
God bless.